Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this FP&A Trends webinar, where today we will be talking about the winning formula for an integrated FP&A. My name is Hans Gobin, the facilitator today, and I am an FP&A Trends ambassador. Just to give you some stats, we've got over 550 people joining us from over 73 countries in the world. So thank you all for joining this meeting today, and I hope it'll be very insightful to you guys. So let me start by quickly running you through what the agenda looks like. So we'll talk about winning formula for integrated FP&A. What is integrated FP&A? The key concepts and definitions, the key success factors for harmonizing your planning system to give you that leverage. Then we'll look at a case study at Mondelez International. What are they doing and where are they on that step of a fully integrated FP&A? We've got some practical tips and example of what integrated FP&A looks like, and here it was done in a period where there was lack of cash and everything else, so very interesting as well as to how you can achieve that. And then finally we'll look at the role of modern technology and analytics in giving you that edge and getting you to that integrated FP&A level. We'll do some conclusions and recommendation, and then we will do a Q&A session. So for your Q&A, you can send us your questions via the chat box. And we have about 10 minutes for the Q&A today, but we will answer all of your questions. Those we can't answer will be done via email. So please send us plenty of questions. Moving on, very good time for me to introduce my panel today. So panelists, if you can please put your camera on and come off mute, and I will start by introducing each one of you. So to start with, we have our first panelist today is Jana Katasova, who is Vice President Finance at Mondelez, joining us from Zurich. And today she will talk to us about how she has put the FP&A, integrated FP&A within her organization and where she's on that journey. Jana, great to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Hans. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you guys, and I really look forward to the session. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jana. We move on. Our next panelist is Sheila Lillis, Finance Director at MIT, joining us from London. And today she's got lots of tips and example of what a great integrated FP&A looks like and what she has done within her previous organizations. So Sheila, great to have you with us today.
Hans, I'm very excited about it. Hopefully we'll get some great insights.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sheila. And finally, we've got Rolf Mentel, who is Chief Product Officer at Jedox. Rolf joins us from sunny Frankfurt today, and he will take us through how technology has developed and is helping us for that integrated FP&A journey. So Rolf, great to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks, Hans, for having me, and I'm really looking forward for an interesting conversation here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got three great panelists, lots of great insight and great experience to share with you on integrated FP&A. So panelists, if you don't mind, if you can put your camera off and go on mute, I've got a few housekeeping to take our audiences through now. So moving on, we'd like to introduce to you our technology sponsor today, Jedox, the world's most adaptable planning and performance management platform. We all know about Jedox. So thank you, Jedox, for sponsoring the event today. Projects and initiatives, FP&A Trends Group, you guys know we are now in 29 cities, in 16 countries and 4 continents. Our expansion was somehow stopped during COVID period, but we've since gone on to have new chapters in Austin and Miami, and we will keep growing. The other thing is the FP&A Insight, the digital community. If you are not already an FP&A Trends member, please join. There are so many articles, so many pieces of relevant information there that you can download or read and consume. And of course, there's the FP&A Education, Research and Consulting, where all our papers, etc., are being done. So please take time and do join us on these. Quickly remind you that it is a 1-hour webinar. We would love you to participate using our 2 polling questions. Very important. We want to know what you guys are doing as far as integrated FP&A is concerned. So please vote when I launch those 2 polling questions. As I mentioned before, Q&A via the chat box. Please ask your question. If you have any question, you can start right now. But please, when we go through after each presentation, direct your question to each of the presenters. We will answer most of them, whatever we can today in our session. Those that don't get answered will be answered to you via email directly to your mailbox. So please don't hesitate, send your question. The presentation is available in handouts for you to download now if you so wish. If not, you will get a copy of the recording as well as the presentation after the meeting, maybe in the next day or 2. Finally, when I close the session, please give us 30 seconds or so of your time. There will be a feedback session where you can tell us how well we did, and also tell us what are the different chapters or topics you would like to hear from us in future. So please take that time and do give us your feedback. Now, let me share with you some definitions on integrated FP&A and the success factors. Again, that's me there. But I think we've all seen over the COVID period, not just COVID period, over all the uncertainty period, that we keep coming to one after the other, the importance of an integrated FP&A organization. If it's not integrated, we fall flat on our face. We can't do scenario planning, or we can do it, but it takes a lot longer. Left hand doesn't know what right hand is doing, etc. So what does an integrated FP&A organization look like? All our plans need to be integrated with each other. Here we've got the strat plan, the financial plan, the operational plan. Top up, bottom up, cross-functional integration is key. What are those key success factors of an integrated FP&A? And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'll just highlight to you again key drivers. Number 1, a driver-based model. Number 2, they have to be 3-way modeling. So P&L, balance sheet, cash flow have to be linked to our plan. Processes have to be integrated. People have to be integrated. Collaboration is key here. And finally, of course, we talk about our integrated platform. The key reason why I will not go into a lot of detail on these is because our 3 panelists will all be touching on all of these. So with that, I will move on to now go to the first case study, which will be presented to us by Jana Katasova, VP Finance at Mondelez. So Jana, whenever you're ready, I will switch my webcam and take it away.
Thank you so much, Hans. I'm very ready. Thanks, everyone. Good day, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. It's a real pleasure being here, and I really look forward to taking you through our experience. Before we dive into this, let me introduce Mondelez. It's a truly global company with approximately 31 billion net revenue. It's operating in over 80 markets and employing approximately 91,000 people. It's organized in 4 regions, 14 business units, and produces in approximately 150 plants. And I'm sure you all know some of our products, or actually I really hope you know some of our products, because we sell chocolates and biscuits and big brands like Cadbury, Oreo, Toblerone, and many, many more. And of course, given Mondelez's geographical footprints and size, the financial planning has to deal with high complexity and high volume of transactions. So that takes me to the next page. But before I start explaining what is there is Let me give you some context as well. So in Mondelez, we have centralized consolidation reporting tool for major forecast and actuals, but we don't really use a dedicated planning tool. We have implemented operational planning process about 10 years back, but we still continue to struggle with some critical pain points. One of them is high manual workload. People still leverage Excel a lot, and there is a high number of planning iterations and conversations that are going on behind the scenes. Secondly, different teams work with different set of numbers. The sales teams start from customer perspective and manual promo planning. The demand planning teams leverage statistical demand forecasting. Supply planning check production constraints, and the finance teams then massage numbers. As a result, a lot of the time is spent reconciling the various targets and sets of numbers. Third, the monthly forecast takes almost a full month, so there is no room for flexibility to react to customer demands or market swings. And as a result, the forecast accuracy is low, unfortunately. This creates a perpetual cycle. Because there is a lack of trust in the base volume forecast, the different teams tend to add overlays and adjustments. And at the end, it is difficult to own the forecast for any of the teams. At the same time, people spend so much time trying to understand the numbers that they do not really have time to see the big pictures and focus on what matters to them and to the company. So there is a strong case for change to us. It's partially imposed on us by the external environment, where COVID and the recent macroeconomic changes require more agile response and ways of working. And at the same time, the technology actually offers a great opportunity to process and leverage large amounts of data and to automate and to generate insights, data-driven insights. So as we enter the journey of integrated planning, we decided to take the high-level approach you see on the page. The strategic plan and the target setting that you see in the upper right side of the page is already in place, so I'm not going to be covering that one today. Our focus now is on the automation of the bottom-up P&L forecasting, just the left bottom part of the page, and on standardizing and enabling the actions taking, which is the sunny part in the middle. Let me start with the bottom-up forecast. We are actually setting up a few principles that we want to implement globally. One of them is monthly frequency of rolling forecast with approximately 18 months horizon. This may sound very basic, but such consensus is not in place today, and a lot of people are doing lots of different things. No-touch volume forecast is the second principle, which means an automated load of volume forecast from demand planning tool, and therefore ensuring one set of numbers. If there are adjustments made, they need to be very, very transparent. And third, we aspire to implement globally aligned rolling forecast calendar, similar to month-end closing calendar that everyone has in place today. So when it comes to the actions taking, the round part in the middle, there are two focus areas for us. One is to standardize the scenarios we are looking at, and also to apply driver-based forecasting. So for example, a scenario for commodity cost increase, for pricing actions reflecting elasticity, or for advertising investments. And secondly, we want to ensure that the teams can actually effortlessly model the scenarios. Let me mention again the commodity cost swings or Forex impacts modeling. So where are we on the journey? We last year piloted revenue planning automation in one of our large business units, about 20 billion revenue. The team confirmed manual workload reduction of 20 to 40%, which is a great achievement. And they are also proud that the financial monthly forecast is now available on day 1 versus previously on day 5 of the forecast cycle. This year, we plan to further build on this by rolling out the revenue automation approach to more business units and partnering with them on the implementation, and expanding the planning capabilities as well. So going into the simulation capabilities, for example, as I mentioned. On the next page, as we move to the last slide, I would like to mention that in our context, the integration has few meanings. As Hans mentioned before, the integration has many meanings to many different people. For us, the most important ones are integration of cross-functional forecasts, so integrating the forecast and the numbers across the teams and working with one set of numbers with transparency of adjustments. Secondly, integrating people behaviors, process, and technology into an ecosystem that will provide reliable outcomes. And reliable means a forecast that we can trust, so increasing the forecast accuracy. And last but not least, integrating the data and insights into the decision-making process. So you can also see on the page the critical success factors that will help us address the pain points and enhance our forecasting with additional capabilities. So the key outcomes we defined are better forecast accuracy. Today we measure only the volume forecast accuracy, and in the future we would also like to measure revenue and gross profit forecast accuracy. As we want to measure also the value add of the overlays or adjustments, that will help also the ownership of teams of the forecast accuracy element. And the second outcome is no manual work and adding insights. Our ambition is that the monthly forecast is prepared in less than 5 working days and that up to 40% of the manual workload is eliminated. That will free up the team focus on the actions taking and on managing the business. And last but not least, one number, we design automated volume forecast load with no finance adjustments. And we want to have transparency of adjustments so that people can see what was adjusted and who did it and why. And is it actually helping us to improve the forecast? So there are 3 levers that are critical for us to succeed. And I think that's generic to every company and every business, actually. It's people, converting them to the new ways of working. And not only in finance, but also cross-functionally, making sure that people understand the whole process and their role in the process. Then actually revamping the process, creating a monthly rolling forecast calendar and define activities per day to improve the efficiency of the process. And then technology and data, clearly. So implementing a new tool to eliminate the manual workload, and that can help us step into the more advanced digital capabilities like checks and alerts, integrated dashboards, and the what-if simulation analysis. So that's all I wanted to share today. I hope you enjoyed it and looking forward to the questions from you. Back to you, Hans.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Great presentation. I mean, there's so many messages here, you know, I don't even know which one to kind of pick, but I think reducing manual work by 40%, you know, bringing down a rolling forecast or monthly forecast to 5 working days, you know, no touch forecast. It's endless. So thank you very much. Great advice here. We've heard from you. I think the best thing now is to go and look at what our audiences are doing, our members are doing in terms of an integrated FP&A. So I've just launched this polling question. How would you describe the level of your FP&A integration within your organization? 4 options. Option 1, planning processes are not integrated, integrated between finance and operation, or integrated just between finance and strategy, or integrated between finance, operation, and strategy, so fully integrated. If you can vote, please, that would be fantastic. So how would you describe the level of your FP&A integration? Planning processes not at all integrated, integrated between finance and operational, integrated between finance and strategy, or fully integrated. So I'll give you another 5 seconds to vote, and I'm now going to close it and share what we're seeing here. So Jana, 36% is not integrated at all, 35% between finance and operation, 17% between finance and strategy, and 12% fully integrated. What would you say about this outcome, Jana?
Well, it's an interesting outcome for sure. I'm really jealous about the 12% companies that are fully integrated. That's a really great job. Well done, guys. And we really aspire to get there over time as well. I guess selfishly speaking, I'm kind of happy to see that the issues we are wrestling with are not unique to us. They probably shared common across the companies. and the companies where planning processes are not integrated, I'm actually a bit surprised at quite a high number. So there is a long journey to go for all of us. So yeah, a lot of heavy lifting. And also
Absolutely.
actually integrated between, yeah, go ahead, Hans.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that we've got some opportunities for the 36% here that they should go on and adopt, especially after listening to this presentation, the importance of integration. They should take the message back to the organization and try and see how they can start adopting those journey. I'm sure they will learn a lot today. Now it's a great time for me to ask the question that Jana wants to ask to the other members of the panel. So panelists, if you can join us on the camera and come off mute as well. And the question is much more around culture. So how did you deal with culture and cultural change leading to an integrated FP&A organization within your own organization? So if I can come to Sheila. Sheila, what will your answer be for this?
Oh, getting people to embrace change is one of the most important things about having successful projects. This is really important to us. So we thought really long and hard about the messages that each of the different teams needed to understand why this was the right thing to do. And then post go live, and actually in the run up to go live, we had frequent two-way communications with key leaders involved, just so that people felt heard.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Communication is one of the most important element in change management. So thank you for that, Sheila. And Rolf, how do you see this happening within your environment with customers? How are they dealing with this?
Yeah, what I see with the customers is that it's actually really a big change coming from a siloed thinking where finance does this job and you do not have the connectivity like we just heard in the example of having the purchasing or the demand planning connected, and the one number is just flowing through, and that has a lot to do with trust and collaboration, and as it's just said, an important part is the continuous communication to really make things transparent, and that very often also needs a big psychological safety, that people dare to give their numbers and make them open and visible, because at the very end it helps everyone, because people have to understand that's not for finger pointing, it's to work better as a team.
Fantastic, great answer there. No, absolutely spot on. So thank you very much for that. Jana, you've got any closing comments before we move on?
Well, I like the comment. Thanks, Sheila and Rolf, for the comments on culture. I agree. It's very, very important. I think we are on the journey, so we can talk again in a year, 2 years. How did we do on the journey? Thanks for the opportunity again for being here, and hopefully this was adding value to some of the people on the call.
No, absolutely brilliant. I mean, we've got to all start somewhere, Jana, haven't we? So brilliant. Let us now move on to the second part of our presentation, which is practical tips. So I'll ask the others to turn their webcam off, and to take us through this is Sheila Lillis. So Sheila, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about not the company I work for now, but the company I used to work for, which is called Interserve. And Interserve was having some really serious financial difficulties. So resources were very limited. But despite that, or maybe in spite of it, we realized that we really needed to think about having integrated planning, apart from anything else, just to be able to know what our cash was looking like. And I want to say to people, all the people out there who don't have integrated planning, so you don't need to have huge amounts of funds and resources to actually make something happen. It is possible. I'm just going back to the poll question before. So we started with thinking about the 6 success factors for integrated planning, and picked them off one by one. The first for us was figuring out what kind of model we wanted, and we knew from the get-go that we needed a 3-way model, because obviously cash, very important to us. We needed the P&L, the balance sheet, and the cash flow. And then we worked through to the next stage, which is thinking about the key drivers in our business. And Interserve was a very people-led business. We had over 20,000 employees, and so a driver around people, and for us that's wage inflation. So we had to think of that from 2 points of view. So not just our internal planning around what resources we'd like, but also legislation changes around minimum wage, government guidance around living wage, and how we could bring that into our model. Like with most organizations, we needed to think about sales as well. So we wanted to tie into the sales CRM system. The rest of our cost base for procurement to make sure that we had our supply chain tied into our planning as well. And a macro issue that I thought I'd just highlight was UK government election cycles. So because we did a lot of work with the UK government, when an election was coming up, it would have a negative effect on our revenue, because civil servants don't like spending money when they're about to get a new boss. Interesting factoid there for us. But it all fed into the drivers that we wanted. And then we thought about the processes that we wanted to integrate. So the start point was that we had at minimum 200 different spreadsheet models across the business that would then get added together one by one onto a platform. And it was just very inefficient. So we wanted to go from that to starting with everybody working from the same space. That would be a key critical success factor for us. And then we wanted to also integrate the sales CRM system, HR plans, and procurement. So moving on to the next slide, we had at that point, we thought about the success factors, we picked our model, we decided on our key drivers, and we thought about which processes we wanted to integrate. And we looked at all of that and realized that we were going to be bringing some really disruptive change into the business. Good change, but still disruptive. So as I mentioned before, when we were looking at the question from Jana, we had to think about how we were going to manage that change and how we were going to make sure that we brought all of our key stakeholders along with us. And we very quickly realized that we needed different messages for each of the stakeholder groups. So for our leadership team, the board and the shareholders, it was about explaining to them that they would have better control over the business, that have a better insight into their key metric, which was cash. And it also enabled us to give them insights to be able to get the business ready for sale. The next biggest stakeholder group is finance, and in lots of ways there's a much easier sell there, because we've all experienced how dysfunctional a disintegrated planning process can be when everyone's working on Excel. So by the time you add up your 200 Excel spreadsheets, you get to an answer that just isn't correct. It's generally very conservative. Then the senior leadership team get impatient and impose a top-down target, which may or may not get pushed back to the local business lines. And so, again, go to Jana's piece about everybody trying to reconcile all the time to see who has the right target. In integrating just takes that away. And then the other teams, it was about promising to them that their forecasts would be integrated into the finance forecast, and vice versa, so that we'd stop having the tick-tock backwards and forwards about whose numbers were right. So we've got our stakeholders on board, we've figured out our success factors, we've got the drivers, the model, we know which processes we want to integrate, and on the next slide, we want to think about how we're actually going to do the integration. So we picked a tool, and I'm not going to spend much time there because that for us was the easiest part of the process. But what we had to think about here was how we were actually going to implement our platform. And we decided to go through a continuous improvement process. So we ran a number of sprints. And each of the sprints had an outcome that took us into a way better place than we'd started from. So the first sprint was to take us off our 200 plus Excel spreadsheets and get us onto a single platform, to have something that could manage the driver around wage inflation and to be able to produce a decent P&L forecast. And we achieved that. The second sprint was about bringing in the sales CRM data, bringing in data from our purchase ledger and sales ledger so that we could start to get a good view of the patterns around working capital to drive the balance sheet part of the planning process. Third sprint, we got our full three-way model, and we started to bring in the HR plans at a role level around overhead staff. And then we brought in procurement and so on and so forth. So every time we were adding something valuable to the system. I would say I've got 3 key takeaways for people who are trying to do this. Number 1, do not let good be, or perfection be the enemy of good. Sorry, I was getting that wrong. You just need to go, if getting off the spreadsheets is the thing you want to do, then go live with that. It's better than what you had yesterday. The new tools on the market really do allow you to refine your plans. So if you figure out that you want to change your drivers, you want to change the way you're working on things, go ahead and do that. And you find, I mean, I certainly found that we had some really great positive byproducts from implementing the system. So we had always thought that our master data was pretty good. Turns out it wasn't quite as good as we thought. And the integrated planning really brought that to light, but it also drove us to actually fix it, and it made the MDM process better overall. And then the same thing with our sales CRM system. We'd always thought it was excellent, but actually what we found out is it wasn't, because it wasn't trusted by some of the other teams. It wasn't getting used properly. So by integrating it, it really drove us to actually improve the data in the CRM system, which both things that we hadn't really thought we were going to get out of the system, but actually improved the business overall. And then that leads us on nicely to my next slide, which is about celebrating the good things that come out of the system. So the byproducts that I just talked about, absolutely needed to celebrate those. The time saved by everybody from the budget process was just ridiculous. We used to start probably sometime in the summer and finish sometime in December. So you're talking about a 6-month cycle, distracting everyone from the actual business of running the business. And even with the first sprint where we just got a P&L, I think that took us down to kind of 2 months. So we made further improvements after that, but just dropping 4 months out of that cycle was a huge upside. And then finally, last but not least, for the finance teams, it just enabled them to actually do more value add work. So taking them away from the spreadsheets and the constant reconciliations and allowing them to actually be proper business partners to their business. So overall, I mean, I hope that this has given people some ideas to think about, and maybe you can implement yourselves. But at this point, I'll hand back to Hans.
Thank you very much, Sheila. Fantastic presentation. Again, so many messages, so many great examples. You know, one that resonates with me, and I always keep telling people, you know, yeah, perfection, but you can strive towards perfection. You don't have to be perfect from day one. You know, it is small steps, and you will get it wrong. You learn from it and you move on. You know, as you had different stages as to how you went about. This was the key achievement that you were shooting for in stage 1. Achieve that, and then you move on. You target the other one, which is fantastic. You can't absolutely do everything in one big bang, you know. So that is a great message there. And finally, you know, where we are here in terms of celebrating wins, that's another key one that people often tend not to do. So talk to people, tell people what you're doing, as you've done in terms of, you know, we've saved so much time by doing this, and you know, we've given people's summer back, as was one of your example. You know, why not? Please, you know, great example. So thank you very much for that, Sheila. Great example there. Let us now look at you know, the next polling question and find out where people are going to spend their time in terms of FP&A integration. So what is the most important factor to further advance your FP&A integration? What are you going to invest time and money, etc. in? Is it in technology where you're lacking and you're going to help? Is it with leadership support? Is it with skills and competencies in finance? Or is it in harmonizing the processes, which is another key aspect? You know, so what is the most important factor to further and advance your FP&A integration? Is it technology? Is it leadership support? Is it skills and competencies? Or is it harmonizing organizational processes? So please, can you give us your vote? If you haven't already, I'll give it another 5 seconds. And I'm now going to close and share the results. So we can see here, technology or harmonizing organizational processes is 50%, and 30% is going on to technology, with 12% leadership support and only 5% on skills. Sheila, what do you think these are showing us?
I think it's really interesting. I'm actually personally surprised that there's so much emphasis on technology. I think the technology that we can get from the market at the moment is excellent, but I think that the key things that you have to tackle are your internal culture and getting your leadership support. But I also think there's a change piece for some of the skills that we see in finance, where people who've been very comfortable with their spreadsheets, and it's quite difficult sometimes to change from somebody who's in that space to being somebody who's a true business partner.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. I mean, in some of the previous polls that we've done on very similar subject, I think we've seen a kind of parity in between all fours. And let's not forget, harmonizing processes, you have to have leadership support for that. You have to have skills and competencies. So there's a lot of opportunities here, as we can see, and of course, technology as well. So yeah, you're definitely right on this one. So let me now hide this, and let's go on to look at the question you have for the other panelists. So panelists, if you can join us, please. And Sheila's got a nice question. I mean, she, during her journey, found out quite a few things that she thought were working well and weren't. So what was the most surprising find in your FP&A integration journey, and how did you deal with it? So if we can go to Jana, please.
Thanks, Hans, and thanks, Sheila. It was a great presentation. I'm really jealous for everything you have achieved already. Congratulations. And in our case, we have done the pilot in one of the markets, and I think the most surprising thing was how unaligned people were about the existing process. Actually, it took us quite some time and heavy lifting to just align people thinking about what are they actually doing today. And then the second thing was getting the data and hierarchies correct and aligned again across the teams. So not really the technology, it was really about the people and process and understanding what they do today.
Great example there, and technology is there as an enabler, and of course Rolf is going to share a lot more of the technology with us, but getting people's aligned, getting processes right and proper, as Sheila mentioned and you mentioned as well, Jana, in the beginning, is absolutely important. Rolf, what are you seeing in your space?
Yeah, there are different things, and they are pretty much aligned with what you just heard. So very often in projects with our customers, it's less about technology, but the time and effort to harmonize data and to align on structures of data and to clean it up. And sometimes the operational data that you would like, especially when you're working with the driver-based model, to get the quality that this really works is very often underestimated. And I would really recommend not trying to clean up the data, but the process for the future data, because that's the investment that's really helpful. But there are also positive surprises that I see, and that is when you've done your homework with modern technology and machine learning, AI capabilities, how good, how accurate, and with how much less effort you can achieve really amazing results in terms of forecasting and so on. So the work is worth it.
Absolutely, it's not just negatives, it's positive. So to Sheila's point, celebrate your wins. Absolutely. So thank you, panelists, for this. Let us now swiftly move on to our next session. So if I may ask the other panelists to go off the camera, and we are now talking about technology. And to deliver that, we've got Professor Rolf to talk to us about how modern technology and analytics can be the enabler of integrated FP&A. So over to you, Rolf, whenever you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Thanks, Hans. And just, I'm not professor, just not, I don't want to take that.
Sorry,
but let's start. No problem. I don't want to show off and with something that I'm not. Yeah, perfect. Let's start what the technology and the 6 success factors, how they are supported by technology. And I don't have to talk much about the 6 success factors because Hans was elaborating that in the beginning with integrated platform, P&L, cash flow, the 3-way planning, driver-based, and so on. So let's go into the details of how technology can help. And let's start with the platform. Just for the 2 great examples that Jane and Sheila were presenting to us, we can see that the integrated solution that a company uses or needs is maybe very different, even though the hub of what people are at the very end after, to have an integrated P&L, cash flow, balance sheet, three-way planning model, the requirements behind that might be very difficult. Like we've seen in the presentations before, on the one side, in Mandalay's case, we had sales, demand planning, supply chain planning as drivers in a manufacturing context. In the second example, we saw that the wage inflation and the HR aspects were very relevant, which also reflects typically in different planning requirements that we have to take care of. And to address these factors, it's important to have a flexible enough system that we can cover the specific requirements that a company actually has. And that starts across different layers. It starts actually with what are the relevant data. We talked about, we heard in the presentations before about the CRM system integration or demand planning integration. So different data need to be integrated. And depending on what type of technology is, where the data is resided, is this inside or without, outside of the company, there are different integration and data preparation aspects to automate this integration process. And then the driver logic of the system has to be modeled. When we talk about the driver-based model, the logic of the drivers, how they are impacting the result, might be very different. And so this is something that is important, that a system is flexible enough within the platform to have an engine where you can define the driver-based logic of your industry, of your specific business model that you're running. And also, it's not just technologically, it's also people working with this. That means all the orchestration of the collaboration with workflows and other activities need to be covered by the platform. And finally, how does the data and the processes interface with the users? So how is technology working with the people within the organization, which means what's the user interface? What's the best way to access the data? In finance, this might be still Excel, but with one version of the truth coming from the system. For a broader audience coming on the HR area or in a sales organization, it might be a web or a mobile interface. So a platform needs to cover all the different aspects, how the data should be faced to the customer. So this is one important pillar to have a successful system integration. On the next slide, we can see how this integration or these capabilities of the platform are actually can actually be used to have that three-way model planning. Because the logic, how a P&L statement and a balance sheet and the cash flow are interconnected, is relatively standardized. Of course, the accounts and the logic for the specific industry, how this is fed, is different. But the overall logic, there are best practices, and you should not reinvent the wheel when there are already experiences how to do this, and a good system can, or the technology can support you with providing this integration. Then you have the logical aspect, and that allows you to combine this with that multi-dimensional way of looking into data, of having the same planning logic for multiple scenarios, for a rolling forecast that we heard about in the presentations before, where you run the processes again with a much higher frequency because of the potential automation that you can get from this integration where the P&L, balance sheet, cash flow are connected. So this is kind of the hub, and now we are coming to the spokes. How are what does this mean? A driver-based aspect that we've seen in the 6 success factors. Looking at the fast pace of change in our markets and in our economies, very often just looking at financial results would be too late in the game. And in both examples that we had in the great presentations before, we've seen how the P&L logic is connected to supply chain planning, demand planning, sales, or to the HR piece with CRM or purchase ledger integration and procurement integration. And exactly this modeling capabilities has to be supported by the planning system. And what we see here is an example where you have the drivers on the left side that are for the cost and for the profit side of the P&L connected, so that you can use real data that's coming either from internal of the organization or from external drivers, which are early warning indicators that can give you an indication when leads in the marketing area, for example, are going down, how does this impact sales? And when sales is impacted, how does this impact revenue? And you do not have to wait until the revenue number shows a movement in a specific direction that you're expecting or that you need to plan. So this is the drivers from a logic. The next interesting question, which you see on the next slide, is how do you actually identify the drivers? And this is also an area where technology can help, because in the digitalized world, almost any process is somehow supported by a system. And with that, the process produces data, and with that, the process is getting measurable. The interesting question is, which of these processes should I connect and integrate in my planning model, in my integrated business planning model, to predict data? And to analyze this technologically, it's relatively straightforward, because you would like to understand the correlations of the data that you have as indicators with your actual P&L and finance indicators. But doing this manually is a lot of work, is very, very time consuming and effortful. And for that reason, you can use automated systems like this AI-assisted driver analysis, where the system does the analysis. So you put in the data, you analyze the data, and you get only the relevant data drivers with the highest correlation to have a good prediction for your result. And that takes a lot of or saves you a lot of time and effort. Manually, it would almost not be possible because of the sheer amount of data. But with this system, you can identify the 20% of drivers that actually make 80% of the prediction in terms of accuracy. So another good example how a system can help and support you. This is more the technological and data side. As mentioned before, and we've heard in the presentations also before, it's a process, it's people, it's a change of culture, and it has a lot to do with communication. This communication and harmonization, how people collaborate within the organization, of course, can be supported with technology very nicely. This can be, on the one hand, for example, for structured processes like a workflow, who has to submit the data at which point in time, how to aggregate this, and how are the tasks. This is how it is possible to reduce, like in the Mendeley example, I think was from 4 days to 1 day, and also reduce the effort. But very often, also in planning processes, it's about that everyone is having the same picture and the same information. So this is about dashboarding and visualizing data for the users. So this is also another help, or orchestrating and communicating about numbers and having qualitative information from experts combined with the data in the system to harmonize about this, which all helps to integrate processes and people. And when we summarize all this together, I hope you could see how technology really can help to build an integrated system that enables you to make better decisions with a system that is adaptable enough to go through the journey of the process that we talked about, that helps you to integrate all data sources, even when they are changing over time or new data is available, which you would like to integrate, or in a stepwise process that you integrate data step after step. And finally, to automate the processes that the manual work is reduced. And I hope that gave you a good idea in terms of what technology can achieve. Thank you.
Rolf, brilliant. What a great presentation. And you've showed us, what technology can do for us. A lot of people struggle with three-way planning. It's there. What I found amazing as well is, AI-assisted driver possibility to find what are the key drivers. We've been talking about these for a long time, where people were going away and getting new tools just to do that element very separately. And now it's all part of this integrated platform and tool. There's so many things. The collaboration is another key thing. So thank you very, very much for sharing that with us today and showcasing what technology can do for us. So we will now go to our question, but just before we put this question to the other panelists, let me remind the audience that, guys, we've still got the very exciting Q&A session coming shortly after this. We've got quite a lot of questions, but that doesn't stop us from answering those questions to you. So please keep sending those questions to us until the end of the session. The ones we don't answer today, we will answer via email. So please keep sending those. Thank you. So now I will ask the other panelists to join us and let us look through what Rolf has as a question for the others. So what is the most important gain using an integrated software has brought to your integrated organization? And if I can start with you, Jana, what would those be?
Yeah, I would say automation, reducing the manual workload, but also actually reducing the length of the forecast. And last but not least, having people to look at one number. So Rolf referred to it a few times, that's very, very important for us so that people don't work with side spreadsheets and reconciling numbers, that everyone pulls into one direction.
Absolutely. I mean, you've given us 3 instead of 1, but absolutely, I suppose I can't stop you guys, but there you go. Sheila. No, there's so many. So Sheila, what would yours be?
Oh, too many to choose from. Cutting down the time of the forecast is phenomenal. Accuracy of the forecast, stopping the fights over reconciling numbers. Everything Jana said and Rolf said, and so much more. It's so worth doing. Can't say highly enough about it. Just get on and do it.
No, absolutely. And the fact that, you know, with reducing all the hard work, reducing the amount of time spent on putting things together, reducing the amount of nonsensical conversation between whose number is right and wrong, those efforts are now put into decision making and looking forward, which is fantastic. So thank you for that. Rolf, what will your closing comment be?
Yeah, I'm also with the 3 because I think what you said is just right. And what we see with our customers in many projects is that it's really a maturity level. So you start really with reducing time, just getting things quicker done. And based on that, integrating the drivers, you get things better done, you get better results because you're improving the quality. And at the very end, and that's really then the where you aim for, this frees up time to do things differently and to actually change businesses. So what about not just measuring churn of your customers and predicting it, but actually avoiding it because you see it beforehand? And with that, it's really a maturity where you, because it's a process, step by step get additional gains.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your insights there. Let us now move on to our key takeaways, so our conclusion section of this webinar. So very quickly, Jana, what would be the one key thing you would like to highlight again to our audience today, the importance of integrated FP&A?
Yeah, I would say that the integrated planning is not really a choice, it's a must. So really companies, if they want to survive, they have to go there, because externally there is so much change today and everyone is becoming much more agile and much more nimble. So it's really a must. And the finance teams and the cross-functional teams have to support this and this challenge. And at the same time, as I mentioned, and Rolf mentioned it as well, is the technology provides so many opportunities to get faster, better, and much more insightful. So there is no choice. We have to go through this.
Thank you very much for that. Sheila, what would yours be?
I agree with everything Jana said, but I'd also say that it gives you a chance to build networks across your organization so you have everybody pulling in the same direction. Because, as we said, we've taken some of the issues out of the conversations, particularly around whose bit of the plan is which, and we're all working together. And that's just so important to the company culture.
Absolutely, and this is where all the value add sort of work goes into. So brilliant there, thank you. And finally, Rolf, what would your one key thing be to highlight?
Yeah, the one key thing that I learned also from the presentations from real life where you're doing is this is a journey and things are changing constantly. And because of that, I think the adaptability of processes and technology is super important, because the company matures, you learn and want to change, you are integrating new data, and then what we've learned all the last years heavily is the whole environment can change drastically, and you need it to adapt, and the system needs to be, and the processes need to be flexible enough to be able to adapt quickly. And so adaptability, I think, is a very important aspect there.
Fantastic. A great point there, Rolf. Thank you very much, panelists, for sharing the conclusions there. Great session coming up now, our Q&A session. So please keep sending your questions till the end of the session. Absolutely. We will answer all of them via email, only a few today live. But let us go straight away into it. So I will start with Jana, and we've got lots of questions. Jana, a very important question is, how did you measure the forecasting process efficiency? So the time spent pre and post introduction of new tool or new process, and what did you do with the time saved, for example?
So I think it's a fair question. I think it's not very easy, and it's probably to an extent an art, not just a pure science. But the fact that the finance teams in the market where we tried it can now be ready in day 1 as opposed to day 5, that means a lot. So in terms of physically, how much people save time, I think it's, as I said, it's partially art, partially science. There is definitely a reduction, and moving away from Excel spreadsheets to one tool makes a huge difference with capabilities. And what do people do with the free time? Well, the intention is that they focus on actions taking. So they don't spend time trying to understand whether the number should be 5 or 6, but they say, well, the number is 5 and my target is 7. What am I going to do about this, right? So that's what the team is doing, and they're already confirming that they are very happy about this in that one pilot we did.
Absolutely. So moving away from information generation into driving action is where, you know, we all want to head. And, you know, and again, you know, all the FP&A survey, you know, FP&A trend survey keeps saying the same thing as to we FP&A and finance people, we want to be driving action. But guess what? We spend very little time doing that. We spend a lot of time, you know, information gathering, information provision, etc. So to your point there, Anna, spot on. So thank you very much for that insight. Let us now go to Sheila. Very interesting question there, Sheila. A part of, you know, what you worked is a multinational organization in Mighty as well as Interserve before. The question is, what advice would you give as regards to better integrating the FP&A teams which work remotely in different parts of the world? So I'm sure you had the same sort of issue. How did you kind of bring them together?
That's a really good challenge. I'm going to confess, we started with the UK, but our teams worked remotely in the UK as well. So we worked together to try and bring people together face to face. This is pre-COVID, at least once a month, just to sit down together. I suspect if we were redoing it again now, we would be doing it on Teams, but it was really important to have that open dialogue so that the local FP&A teams could give their feedback and their input into the process. And when we had them involved right from the start. So when I say we thought of the drivers, that was we in the widest possible sense of the word. All the local teams got involved too.
Yeah, and I think going back to, so thank you for that. And I think going back to that slide you had where you had finance on it, you know, it's always easier to sell to finance because, you know, as you mentioned, you know, they can tell, they know the benefit of it. But of course, communication and bringing everyone on the journey as from day one along, and making sure everybody know about what they're doing and giving them that sort of responsibility, having some sort of a steering committee or whatever it is, all of that, you know, help always towards kind of making sure that people are all singing from one hymn sheet, I guess, right? So spot on there. Yeah.
And just I think one thing to add to that is just being a little bit aware of the language differences and people's ability, if we're working in English, people's ability to understand, so making sure that people have really understood and that we give them time and space to think what they want to say if they're translating it to English again.
Yeah, no, definitely cultural difference. So thank you very much for that. Our last question, unfortunately, because we are very quickly running out of time, is to Rolf. And interesting question, Rolf, and people always ask that and ask anybody. Should an organization go big bang to implement integration process, or how, from your angle, should they implement this?
Yeah, that's a good question, but I think Jana and Sally answered it already. It's a process. I think big is good. So have a vision where you want to go, but start quickly. And that means with this clear focus, and then move stepwise and execute step by step and increase and widen the scope. That's what I would recommend, because this is that agile process that we just learned all during the session, where you're learning from every iteration, and you can get stepwise. People see successes and see what's working, what's not working. You can correct when you're somewhere wrong. And again, adaptability is key. A system needs to be flexible to support that journey, but I think that brings then the best results, because it's not that you have an assumption in the very beginning and then you realize whatever the data quality is not supporting a specific thing that you had in mind. And also to celebrate successes, it's good to have on the journey multiple successes where you can build on.
Absolutely, and both Jana and Sheila shared with us that it is a long-term journey, and there are pieces they're adding on all the time. What are you aiming for? Get it first and then move on to the next one. So it's not really a big bang process. So panelists, thank you very much for answering those questions. Unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions, even though we've got loads, but I will urge you guys to keep sending it. We will answer all of them to you directly via email. So please stay on the webcam, panelists. We've just got a few more slides to take our audience through. So please put this in your diary. The next webinar I'm doing is on March the 28th, and it's on leveraging predictive planning and forecasting within FP&A. So again, integration, but you know, the tool, the AI side of things. And of course, we've got our FP&A trend survey coming soon. So please click here to participate when you get this. You have been giving us your insight over the past few years, so please keep providing this to us again and again. So thank you for that. Final slide here, a big massive thank you to Jedox for sponsoring this event, for making it possible. So thank you very much, Jedox. Thank you very much, panelists, for massive insight and presentation. It's been really, truly great. So thank you very much for making the time and the effort to be with us today. And finally, our members of the FP&A board, the audience from 73 odd countries around the world, thank you very much for taking time and for being with us today, and for also participating in our polling question. Finally, this is how we keep in touch. So please link up, join up, etc. With us, with the FP&A community. Before I say goodbye, just a quick reminder, when I close this, you will get the feedback. So tell us how we did, but also tell us what are the different topics you would like to hear from us in the future. With this now, it's a good time to close the webinar. Hope it's been fantastic for you. So thank you very much and goodbye, and we'd like to see you in the next one. Have a great morning, afternoon, and evening. Goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.